We are just having a few teething problems, waiting for Rachel to get online, so please bear with me. We will get there shortly. For those of you who have already joined us, my name is Susie Ashworth and I am the pregnancy coach and co-founder of the Calm Birth School and founder of Susie Ashworth Pregnancy Coaching and Hypnobirthing Specialist Practice. And today we are here to enjoy a wonderful masterclass with the lovely Rachel Neal, if she can get online, so please bear with me, and we're going to do our best to get things up and running as quickly as possible. If you can hear me and see me okay, if you can just type into the box that you can hear me and see me, that would be amazing. Can you hear me? The joys, huge apologies. And we may even have to stop the broadcast to work out how we can get Rachel online. I know that she is there and trying her hardest. So please bear with me, with us. Okay. So just to give you guys a little bit of background, as I say, I am from the Calm Birth School. I'm the co-founder, and we are an online hypnobirthing school where we deliver hypnobirthing classes straight to the inboxes of anybody who signs up with us at the Calm Birth School. Our mission is to really change the way that women and medical professionals and really change the way the world views birth. We believe that it is a positive experience, or can be a positive experience, when you have the right preparation and the right support network around you. So what we look to do is really empower you with information so that you know how to work with your care providers in the best possible way. Your partners know how to support you in the best possible way whilst you're birthing, and you feel knowledgeable about the birthing process and the things that you can do to work with your baby and your body whilst you're birthing, rather than working against things. These masterclasses are about working with other antenatal and postnatal professionals to really give you as much information as you can muster to help you really navigate the different twists and turns that your pregnancy and birth may throw up to you. Throw up? That's not a very nice word, is it? May present to you. So this is what these classes are all about. Today we are, if we're lucky, touch wood, going to be joined by the lovely Rachel Neal, who is a very experienced osteopathist. We thought it would be great to have a look at the world of osteopathy because many of our clients talk to us about just the general aches and pains that come along with pregnancy. They talk about the fact that their groins often come out of alignment, talk about how they kind of get back pain, shoulders ache as you're kind of growing this human being and you get bigger and bigger as they get bigger and bigger. Osteopathy can really help to aid the way that your body is moving and growing and supporting you. After your baby has arrived, we recommend, even if you've had a fantastically straightforward, easy delivery, that you take your baby to see a cranial osteopath. And Rachel will hopefully be able to expand on why cranial osteopathy, once your baby has arrived, is also a really beneficial thing. So if you bear with me, I'm going to check in to see if Rachel is almost on her way. Right. Okay. We're nearly there. I'm hoping we're nearly there. I've got my fingers crossed that we are nearly there. We have sent a new link and hopefully Rachel will be joining us very, very shortly. If you have any questions about osteopathy and how it can help that you would like me to ask Rachel, please type in your question into the box. And when she gets online, we can ask away. I think we can see her.
Yay!
Yay! Excellent.
Letting me watch. I was like, how do I join?
Fantastic. Really, really pleased to say that Rachel is here.
I've got you playing twice. Just give me a second.
Rachel is here. She's online. You're live, Rachel.
That's better. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Brilliant. Sorry, I had the conversation still going, so it was all a bit strange.
No worries. So let's get going. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into the world of osteopathy?
Well, I've been osteopath for over 8 years now, and I originally did a degree in biology and sport physiology, and I was always interested in health, and then stumbled across osteopathy, and the philosophy of it just completely made sense to me. Just addressing a problem, kind of looking at the body as a whole, just the way it worked holistically, and I could work with people and help people. It was just, that's what brought me into it, and then I've just loved it ever since. So
okay, it made sense to you. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your practice? Tell us a little bit about your practice.
I didn't quite hear that, but I think you were asking about a practice.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about who you see.
Sorry, we've got a bit of a delay going on. I have my own practice now, having worked for different practices over the last 8 years. And I see all different kinds of people, from builders to electricians, baristas, and lots of pregnant ladies and postpartum mums. So complete and utter variation, really. Main focus now, I'm really enjoying treating kind of women in pregnancy, because it's just such an exciting time. And
yeah, it's an amazing time.
And it's a very rewarding area. It's great.
Could you do me a favour, Rachel? Could you just say that a little bit again, because there was we kind of cut out a little bit. So you were talking about why. Yeah.
I know. I was just saying that it's such a special time for them that it's just so nice to be a part of it. And also, even though I treat lots of pregnant women, it's still really exciting for me each time I meet a new lady who's expecting a baby, and just getting to meet that baby as well at the end of it. It's amazing.
So talk to me about the difference, because I think that before I started with hypnobirthing and working with pregnant women, quite often I would hear some people going to a physiotherapist, some people go to a chiropractor, some people go to an osteopath, and then when I kind of first started, I was like, well, I don't know who to recommend, what to. So what's the difference between a physio, a chiropractor, and an osteopath?
Well, everyone asks that question. There's a massive overlap nowadays. We have quite a slightly different training. Physios tend to train for 3 years, whereas osteopaths and chiropractors tend to do 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff we do initially is very similar, in that we do physiology and anatomy and pathology, but our philosophies tend to change and be slightly different. So physios tend to work a lot more on the rehabilitation side, and nowadays do less hands-on stuff, whereas chiropractors tend to look a lot more at the spine, and it's a lot more structural, as it were, so looking very much more at kind of spinal alignment rather than whole body alignment. This is being stereotypical here, we'll explain more in a minute. And osteopaths generally think that structure governs function, so that the whole structure can affect function. So anything from the feet to anything, the way we hold ourselves, is all going to affect everything. So it's looking for the body patterns, really. But nowadays, kind of once we graduate, we all have to do continual professional development. And so often there is an overlap. So you might find an osteopath who might work a bit more like a physio, or you might find a physio who works a bit more like an osteopath. It can vary, and we all tend to go with what we feel works for us. So yeah, it's a bit confusing, really, but there is an overlap, but our kind of base is slightly different. Does that make sense? Kind of. I think I've lost you. Hello?
Okay, so if you did, no, that made perfect sense.
Okay, we've got a bit of a delay going on. It's confusing.
Okay, so I was asking, if you were a pregnant woman now, how would you determine which practitioner was going to be able to help best?
In terms of chiropractic, osteopathy and physio, or you mean generally? In terms of physio and chiropractic? Well, And with the NHS nowadays, you get physio, and it can be helpful, but it generally is kind of an exercise class for a few people at once, and it's not very specific for that individual. And due to time, they generally focus on exercises. Whereas with osteopathy, if you see somebody privately, they can spend time doing kind of more hands-on work, trying to release off muscles and address kind of postural problems, rather than it just be specifically about exercises. An osteopath will go through exercise with you as well, but they'll have the time, they've got a bit more time, so they have time to go through kind of more hands-on work, addressing kind of alignment and any tensions that arise. Chiropractor is probably similar to osteopathy, but I don't know quite so much about them. There are some that will also specialise in pregnancy. It can often be about just finding a practitioner that works for you and that you get on with as well, because I think that can be really important as well.
Hugely.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. You've got to feel comfortable with them, so.
So talk to me about the type of complaints that your clients present to you.
All sorts, really. So the commonest is probably kind of either pelvic pain, pubic symphysis pain at the front, sometimes leg pain, heavy legs, heartburn, upper back pain, thoracic pain, often boobs getting bigger, and the pregnancy's changing. They often get kind of pain in the upper back and shoulders. They're kind of the main complaints, really, and then also people who just to make sure that their body is doing what it's meant to be doing before the labour to help prepare for that. They're kind of the main things.
So pelvis pain, pubic area pain, around the back.
Yeah.
Shoulders.
Kind of, yeah. Heartburn.
Okay.
And rib pain as well, because after the posture changes, people can start getting quite a lot of rib pain as well, so it can help with that as well.
Okay. So what types of things, how quickly can you treat things? How does it work? What's the process when somebody comes to you with an ailment?
Depending on when they come in pregnancy and kind of what pain, kind of how much pain they're in, it kind of varies. So you get some people who come as soon as they start getting niggles quite early on in pregnancy, and then which is quite a good time really, because you can get them straight onto the right exercises and addressing any problems before they get really deep ingrained. So if they've come for kind of niggly lower back pain because their bum muscles are getting tight, then you can work on loosening them off, and then also giving them exercises to one, stretch, but also strengthen those muscles. Then you also get people who don't come until a few weeks before they're due in a lot of pain. You've kind of hoped it would get better or just ignored it, and then hopefully you can still help them quite a lot, but often you can't take the pain away completely. You're just kind of getting it to a point where you're reducing their pain levels quite a lot, and also just giving them stretches and just guiding them through what they can do in labour and before labour to kind of just help the body adapt, really. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I suppose the lesson is that if you're feeling any niggles at all, go and find somebody early.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so many of the problems can be prevented, not always, but most of them can be prevented or at least limited. And so, yeah, the earlier we can address it, the better that's going to be, really. And also doing the exercises. A lot of people don't. Some do, some don't. But they definitely help. Kind of keeping the body moving and active is really important during pregnancy.
Okay. Rachel, can you explain to me what SPD is?
SPD? Well, you kind of have pubic symphysis dysfunction, which is the pubic symphysis is the joint at the beginning, at the front of your pelvis. And you have your whole pelvic girdle, which is kind of like a circle. So a lot of people get pain at the front where the joint is, and as you get during pregnancy, it can get more mobile. It can start to shear, and you can get pain at the front. You can also get pain in the back, which is kind of the sacroiliac joints, because it's a circle. often if you get pain in one area, you'll have dysfunction in the other. But it really can be quite debilitating if you're getting pain. Sorry. If you're getting pain at the front, so you've got your pubic symphysis. I think you might have missed a bit, and I don't know which bit. So you've got your pubic symphysis at the front, and that's kind of a cartilaginous joint, and it can move. I think we have a bit of delay. And as you're in pregnancy, it can start to shear as it gets more loose, and that can cause pain both at the front, and you can also get pain at the back in the sacroiliac joints as it becomes more unstable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. So as your joints and ligaments become looser as you go throughout your pregnancy, it can start to cause pain both at the front and at the back of the pelvis. So are there any things that our watchers and listeners can do on their own to help that pain, or is it something that really you need to be going to see a professional for as early as possible?
A bit of both, really. I mean, there's lots that people can be doing on their own. It's often worth getting an assessment, especially if you're still getting niggles. I recommend to everybody that they do something like a pregnancy Pilates or a pregnancy yoga and generally stay active. And then if they start to get niggles, it's definitely worth getting a full assessment just to look for problems and just make sure everything's moving as it should be and everything's aligned. Some of the kind of more specific exercises that are good, kind of the cat stretch that a lot of people know, where you're on all fours and you're raising up and going down, making sure they do pelvic floor exercises, good on pelvic floor exercises. Kind of another one is just being on all fours and imagining kind of lifting the pelvic floor and bringing the belly button to the spine, which helps kind of contract, helps strengthen the muscles around the stomach. Kind of the deep ones, again, to support the baby. If you've not got any pain at the front, then doing some squats against a wall will help strengthen the glutes, which are really important muscles for stabilizing the pelvis, which, like I was saying before, because the pelvis gets looser during pregnancy, the more stabilization you can have from the muscles, the better, because that's going to help kind of keep that tighter and stop shifting around so much. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. So the cat position, where you can do lots of nice stretches, so up and down.
Yes.
If you haven't got pain at the front, you can do some squats against the back of the wall.
Yes.
I missed the middle ones. Pelvic floor. Pelvic floor is going to help with SPD.
Well, it's the pelvic floor. It's the whole pelvic floor. The pelvic floor is massive, so it spans from the front to the back. And just by keeping that strong, you're going to be keeping it lifted. It's going to help the whole lot, really, the whole circle, because it's attached pretty much to the whole pelvic bowl. That makes sense?
Wow.
And so, yeah, it will all help. And also, kind of, you're not activating your pelvic floor, you won't also be activating the deep stabilizing muscles as much either, if that makes sense.
Okay.
The kind of deep abdominal muscles.
Even more of a reason to do your pelvic floor exercises, ladies, like we always tell you.
Another important exercise actually is for the inner thigh muscles, is just either lying on your back if you're still comfortable on your back with your feet hip width apart, and just having a small ball or pillow between your knees and just gently squeezing it for like about 7 seconds and then relaxing and doing that a few times, and that helps kind of keep the inner thighs working, which will also help stabilize and the pelvis. That makes sense. So
if you have a small cushion in between your knees and then gently squeeze.
Yeah, just gently. You don't want to be too forceful. You're just wanting to activate those inner thigh muscles.
Okay.
And that keeps them firing as well, which will also help stabilize everything.
Perfect. So that's probably the biggest one. Is pelvic girdle pain the same as SPD? PGP the same as SPD?
There's a massive overlap. Some people, the terms are changing. People don't use SPD as much now. They tend to refer to it as pelvic girdle pain. but it's possible to have pain at the pubic symphysis at the front without having problems in the back and the sacroiliac joints. And it's also possible to have pain in the sacroiliac joints without having any pubic symphysis pain. So they're not identical, but there's a massive, massive overlap. Because it's a circle, it's very hard not to have dysfunction in one area without having dysfunction in another area. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So all of those exercises.
Yeah, that and just generally keeping active, lots of walking, trying not to slouch. Trying to think what other things. The exercise balls are brilliant as well, because you can do things like pelvic tilts, forward and backwards, side to side, and all that kind of thing, and also lean on it. And that all again helps just mobilize the pelvis and just keep everything kind of ticking over, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think probably what we'll do, Rachel, what would be really helpful is after we've finished the masterclass, is if we have a list of all of the exercises that you've mentioned.
Definitely.
And then
that's not a problem. I can just do a little summary of each one.
And now I wanted to ask you about osteopathy once babies have arrived, because it's one of the things that we recommend to all of our clients, whether you've had a really straightforward birth or not, that they take their baby to have at least one session of cranial. And I just wanted to understand if that is kind of your philosophy, whether you think that that's a good idea, and if so, explain why.
Generally, it's always worth getting them checked, because you don't know exactly what they've gone through. Fast labours can be a bit of a shock to the baby. They've got to go through a lot to get out, especially if they're getting out fast. A lot of compressions going through that head, regardless of whether it's kind of a straightforward labour or whether super fast or very long labour. They're still going to be going through all those stresses and strains of getting through the birth canal and having the uterus, which is a massive strong muscle pushing on it and pressing the poor baby through. Even C-section, people often say with C-section, obviously they haven't been through that, so they won't need it, but they also haven't gone through that natural compression, and with that natural compression comes the expansion once they're born, and that helps their bones to kind of get to where they're meant to be, as it were, or start to. So even with a C-section, it's quite important and can be beneficial to get them checked. So, and also, you may think they may be fine and happy and everything, but sometimes there can be little problems that are so much easier to deal with now that may present later on. So there may be like jaw things that may not affect feeding, but may affect kind of teeth alignment, or not teeth alignment, but kind of the jaw development. And so it is worth just getting things checked early on.
And we've kind of talked about straightforward deliveries and C-section there, but I'm guessing that goes double or triple if you have an instrumental delivery. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, the forceps, I don't know if you've ever seen some forceps, but they're quite barbaric looking, and they've got a lot of compression through that head. They're going to squeeze it, even with the one tubes being sucked out. That can kind of affect the compression through the sides and through the base. And we've all got our little nerves that come out the base of the skull, and they can get irritated. They'll be working, but they'll be irritated, and so some treatment can just help calm that down, and also just help any moulding that might have occurred.
So what's the benefit of getting that sorted out early? Kind of how does it impact the baby if you don't have cranial kind of early?
I mean, obviously, some will be absolutely fine, but ones that do have compression, there can be various problems. There can be, so some of the nerves that come out, it's like the vagus nerve that kind of supplies the digestive system and the diaphragm, and if that's kind of not functioning properly, it can cause digestive problems, can cause reflux, although that can be slightly difficult. And then you've also got the nerves to the tongue, which can affect feeding. So you can have feeding issues if there's a lot of compression there as well. Or say if the forceps are compressed through the jaw, again that can affect feeding. if they haven't got the full jaw mobility and throat mobility to feed properly. Makes sense?
Yeah, totally. So if so potentially digestive issues, so can potentially cause reflux, can affect the feeding if they've had jaw compression, or the tongue can be affected again if the jaw's not in total alignment.
Yeah, or the neck. Sometimes babies that can't, the neck might be held one way, and so they obviously can't kind of latch equally on both sides because they haven't quite got that movement, or they may just feel really uncomfortable. There may not be any specific problem, other than they just feel uncomfortable in themselves. Because I mean, most of us have had a headache at some point. They probably don't get headaches like we do, but they may feel uncomfortable if there's compression through their head still.
Okay. And so, at what point is a good time for mum to bring her baby to you?
Quite early, I would say in the first couple of weeks, but it also depends on mum. Often if they've been through traumatic birth, or it's such an overwhelming thing that getting out of the house sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming in itself. So I want the mum to feel relaxed, so kind of waiting until they're ready as well. But kind of ideally, kind of by 2 weeks is quite a good time to have seen them by, but later's fine. I mean, it's just best to get things addressed in the first 6 months. But definitely, ideally, that first couple of weeks would be the best. Okay. But if you miss it, then it's still worth kind of pursuing treatment and still having a look.
Okay, great. And can you explain what you do when you do cranial osteopathy? Because I know that some people are a bit like, oh, baby manipulating the head, is that going to be scary? Is that going to be intense? You know, what? I kind of describe it a bit like magic. I said, I don't really know what they do.
I think we all probably have a different way of explaining it. For me, it's not all just focused on the head, although cranial does mean head. But basically, our heads are a fascia, or babies' heads especially. There's kind of this soft tissue material, and the bones are within it. And so basically, you're just supporting them. So if they're twisted, you're just kind of helping to guide them, support them into a position where they're eased. And the tissues generally do it for you. You kind of get them into a point where, just very gently, you're barely doing anything. You're just kind of giving them that extra support so the tissues can go, oh, okay, I can relax into this. And they just unwind. You just have to guide them to do what they can do. You're just giving them that little bit of external support so the body feels it can do that. It's a bit weird, but it does work. And also kind of with the base of the head where a lot of the nerves come out, you're just releasing it off. You're just kind of balancing the tissues. You're just giving the body space to relax, and freeing off some of that compression. I mean, you're not doing anything rough. It's very, very gentle. Most babies like it. And if the baby comes in and is unsettled, we can treat whilst they're feeding, whilst they're being cuddled, while they're sleeping. In fact, feeding is quite a good time to treat them. They tend to be happy, they tend to be relaxed. Mum tends to be happy because the baby's happy. It's quite a nice time to treat them.
Sure. And I know that some osteopaths use cranial osteopathy on mum while she's pregnant as well.
Yes. With mum, with both really, you use a combination really. So you've kind of got your cranial techniques, and they're good because they're gentle. They're just kind of going with the body. Often pregnant women often feel a bit protective of their bodies when they're pregnant, and so it's nice to be able to do very gentle techniques. And you're basically working on their sacrum normally, which is kind of the part back of the pelvis, and just trying to release that off, and releasing off through the lower back and releasing off through those tissues. But because it's so gentle, mums can just feel they can relax into it a little bit more than kind of some of the more structural work, which can be more painful.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
That answered the question perfectly, thank you, Rachel.
But with both of them, we still do. You can do kind of gentle stretches with babies.
Not really.
Oh.
Because I think the screen's frozen again. Okay,
Yeah, missed all that. I don't know what you said.
So basically, from kind of what we said before, that actually cranial osteopathy would be great for the majority of newborn babies, whether you've had an easy delivery or kind of a more challenging one. And for mums, when it comes to your alignment and feeling uncomfortable, whilst there's kind of a whole kind of attitude that we all go through it and that's kind of just part of pregnancy, actually, if you can get help and support early on, it really will help you in the latter stage.
Yeah, even if it's some guidance, just to know exactly what things you should and shouldn't be doing, really. I mean, there's loads of hands-on stuff we can do, but it's just worth just checking in, finding out the kind of best way, which exercises are going to help, which to avoid, and things like that as well. And positions and postures. Slumping isn't great in pregnancy, especially late pregnancy, so just kind of being encouraged to not slouch will all help the birth and everything as well.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for making it on. Sorry you didn't have the right link to start with.
It's all right, I was enjoying watching it. I was late to join.
And we will get kind of a nice PDF together so that the watchers can have some idea on the types of exercises that they can be using. But obviously, as with all of your care, make sure that you seek professional advice before doing anything.
Yes, always. Definitely.
And that's us. For all of you who are not already Calm Birth School students, we love giving away free stuff, so please make sure you go and visit thecalmbirthschool.com to sign up for your free hypnobirthing classes. We love to offer help and additional support to make sure that you have the best possible birth experience you can. So that is us for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry that it's been a bit awkward with the screen kind of.
Yeah, I've lost you now again.
Using it. Rephrase again, just said. Thank you so much.
Blame the wind for causing some kind of internet glitches tonight. Frozen again.